Hello and welcome to my kitchen at home, where I have been tinkering with one of my favourite seasonal vegetables, the rhubarb, to bring you my cupcake version of a classic British treat, rhubarb and custard. These rhubarb ripple sponges are going to be filled with a tangy rhubarb goo, topped with custard buttercream and then drizzled with a sharp rhubarb syrup. Now, if you're not familiar with rhubarb, it's this lovely pink stuff. It kind of looks a little bit like celery, but it's pink. It doesn't taste anything like celery though. It's really, really sour, but once you cook it down, it becomes really fragrant and tangy, and as long as you add sugar to it, it's absolutely delicious. And the first thing you need to do is get that ready. So after you've washed and dried your rhubarb, I've got about 300 grams here. You just need to chop up your rhubarb into 2-inch chunks. I'm going to be baking mine because I think that keeps all the moisture in and all the flavour in. So I have a small roasting tray here. I'm just going to put it all on the bottom of that in one layer. And I'm going to sweeten it up with 3 tablespoons of caster sugar just sprinkled over the top. And you can add other flavours. I'm going to add the zest of 1 orange and some vanilla. Now for the vanilla, you can either just split a whole vanilla pod and just lay it over the top, and the flavour will kind of get all mixed up in there. I don't have any vanilla pods, so I have just mixed a tablespoon of water with a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I'm going to sprinkle that over the top of everything. You don't need to add water because rhubarb has loads of liquid in it. It's going to be swimming around in it by the end of the cooking. So you can leave that out if you want, but for now, just wrap the whole tray in tin foil really tightly, and then it needs to be baked at 180 degrees C for 15 to 20 minutes. Once the rhubarb comes out of the oven, you'll see that the rhubarb's completely broken down in there. It's gone really mushy and all the liquid is kind of separated off. And I'm going to put that liquid into a container because I want to save it for something. So I'm just going to sieve it off. Now, I'm not going to stir this through the sieve because I don't want any pulp to get into the syrup. I want the syrup to be nice and clean. And once most of it's drained off, I'm going to whiz up the rhubarb to be a fine goo. So that's my rhubarb goo ready. I'm just going to wait for all of that to cool down, and now I'm going to get on with the cupcakes. Now it's time to make the lovely rhubarb ripple cupcakes, and this is just my basic vanilla cupcake recipe, but with some of that yummy rhubarb goo ripple through it. So to start with, I've got 125 grams of self-raising flour, which I'm going to put through a sieve, along with 125 grams of caster sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, and then just shuffle that through. Next up, I'm going to add 125 grams of soft unsalted butter, along with 2 large free-range eggs. And I'm going to mix that for 1 minute on a medium speed to bring it all together. Once it's had a minute, just drop the speed right down and then pour in 1.5 tablespoons of whole milk mixed with 1/4 teaspoon of good quality vanilla extract. Put the speed back up to medium and mix it for 30 seconds. That batter is basically ready, but obviously doesn't have any rhubarb in it. So once your paddles got out of the way, ta-da, you then need to ripple the rhubarb through, and the only good way of doing that is to basically put rhubarb in there and don't mix it around too much when you're scooping out. And this is one of the good reasons why you should use spoons for this, to take your batter out and put them in the cases. So I'm just going to put a couple of blobs of rhubarb into my batter. And then using my spoons, I'm going to scoop up the batter, kind of mixing some of the rhubarb through, but not completely. So what I end up with is like little pockets of rhubarb. And when you feel like you're kind of running out of ripple, then just put a bit more rhubarb in and do the same thing. Now, rhubarb season starts in March and goes all the way through to June, but what you might find is that the only rhubarb you can find in the supermarket is forced rhubarb, and this is just as good. It's actually a bit paler in colour and a bit sweeter than regular rhubarb, and they grow it in really dark sheds with little holes poked in the roof, and the rhubarbs kind of grow straight up trying to get to the light, and sometimes they squeak apparently, which sounds kind of creepy, but makes really good rhubarb. And once all your batter is in your 12 cases, you need to bake those at 170 degrees C for 20 to 22 minutes. While my cakes are cooling down, I'm going to make something to go on the very top at the very end, and that is a crumble topping, because rhubarb crumble is also one of my favourite puddings, and this is super duper easy to make. In my bowl I have 80 grams of plain flour, and I'm going to add 20 grams of porridge oats, a teaspoon each of demerara and caster sugar, a good pinch of salt, and I also have 40 grams of melted unsalted butter. I'm just going to pour that in as well. And now just need to give that a really good stir so that crumbs start to form. Now once it starts to clump together, you can kind of get rid of your spoon and get your fingers in there, because you want to make these crumble crumbs really small and fine. And after rubbing it all through your fingers, once you've got a nice amount of small little crumble nuggets, you just then need to put it onto a baking tray and bake it at 170 degrees C for 10 to 15 minutes. And it'll be ready when it starts to turn a nice golden brown colour. Now I've already removed the middles of my cupcakes using an apple corer so that I've got plenty of room for my rhubarb goo, which I have put into a piping bag, and now I'm just going to fill the holes. And to top these, I'm going to be using Custard Buttercream, which is also known as creme mousseline, to give it its fancy name. And the recipe for this is on my Boston cream pie cupcake video, so just go and check that out. I have a piping bag full of it. And now it's nearly time to finish them off, but first of all I'll just show you this syrup. So this syrup is made from the syrup that we poured off the rhubarb earlier, and all I did was just put it into a saucepan and reduced it by about half. It took about 5 minutes, and now it's this lovely, thick, very, very pink colour, and it is so tart and yummy, and I can't wait to eat it. And last but not least, a sprinkling of our crumble that we made, which is absolutely delicious. I kind of just want to eat the whole thing. And they are done, and I really hope you make these because they are so tasty. They're the perfect balance of sweet and sharp and creamy and yummy, and they are really, really delicious. And forced rhubarbs and regular rhubarbs should be around until sort of beginning of June, so make sure you try these and share this recipe with people you think might like to cook with rhubarb. Get more people cooking with rhubarb. I'll be back next week with another recipe. In the meantime, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face, and I'll see you next week. Bye. I love rhubarb.